I desperately pursued God to see things. And I think seeing is super important because it's the scriptures are full of it. So the prophetic phrase that's often used in the Old Testament, I I behold, I looked and I beheld. It's like two different seeing words. So I noticed something and then I stared at it and went into something. And then they see all sorts of stuff. And the interesting thing is most of the time no one else is seeing it, or you don't know the context within their where they're seeing it. So you assume that they're on their own and they've been praying in a cave somewhere or in the temple and they have this encounter. So although I was kind of wanting to see things, and I actually, as far as I can tell, saw a couple of things physically, or it became so difficult to tell at those moments what was physical and what wasn't. Although I had those experiences, the whole journey started to teach me that it wasn't seeing with my eyeballs that was the most important thing, or I got it the wrong way around. You know, I think if I see it, you know, people will ask me when I talk about an angel, I say, "But did you see it with your physical eyes?" As if if you've seen it with your physical eyes, it's more real. And actually, I realized I started to have my mind messed with to realize, hold on, what you can't see with your physical eyes, that reality actually is more important than the physical, because Paul says, set your eyes on things unseen, which is a ridiculous statement, isn't it? So I'm encouraged by that sort of statement because it encourages me to use contradictory statements. He says, look at what can't be looked at. And there's an inner seeing which is possible, where you know that what you're seeing is utterly real, and in fact more real than the physical, in that it will potentially change the physical realm as a result of it, as a result of you engaging with that unseen. And I know we kind of do that all the time as Christians, but we don't necessarily think it through. Just like hearing God's voice. Most people are not saying that they heard an audible voice, but they got the sense of what God was saying to do, and then they acted on it and something happened. So it's rather than trying to reduce everything to the physical realm, it's actually beginning to expand and operate with your inner seeing, because that's greater than your physical seeing. And the scriptures are full of that. So it says, Paul says, we're changed from glory to glory, from, let's try and de-religious, de-biblical language that, from vibration, from expression of Yahweh through you, to another level of expression of Yahweh through you, constantly, by gazing upon his glory, by looking at him. This is what 2 Corinthians chapter 3, just at the end there. There's something about, if I look at him, I'm transformed. And so I think the sweep of the scriptures is you can't be transformed unless you see him. But you're not seeing him physically. That's not the transforming power. It's this inner, I see him. And I found that when something started to go on within me where I was becoming crazy enough to believe some of the things I was starting to imagine, if you like, around me, because I would see something in my imagination and then see fruit of it. Like I can remember watching on a plane coming back from the States, this was totally new for me, seeing, kind of like seeing it's there and then it's not there, and it's there and it's not there. Like you might think of describing a ghost, like, oh, I saw it and then I looked and no, it wasn't there, but then I looked again and it was there. An angel walking down the aisle of the plane, and I wasn't expecting this. I was tired. It's from the States, so I was in jet lag mode. I'm like, what is that? What's he doing? And it seemed to me when the fraction of a second I was seeing it and then not seeing it, it was smiling at me. And it went up to a person and put its hand inside the person. Remember, I'm seeing this and not seeing it. It's a flashing in and out of my imagination sort of thing. And when he put his hand inside this person's body, they twitched, they moved, they went like this. I thought, whoa, so that got my attention. And it carried on then looking at me and smiling. So get this, when I'm saying this is what I'm seeing, it's an in-out. I could choose to not believe this. I could turn away from it, or I could go, no, I think I might actually be seeing something. It's that in between, which way you're going to go, what you're going to believe. And so I thought, well, I'll carry on watching. He moved to a different part of the aisle and put his hand on top of a woman's head. I remember him putting his hand on top of a woman's head. And the woman shook as soon as his hand landed on the head. Now, this is two things now. So my skeptical mind was going, well, this isn't a coincidence then, is it? This is two things now. And then a third thing happened, and so on. And it was the beginning of a journey that you'll probably be quicker, but it took me a best part of a year of experiences occasionally like that to start to rewire me to realize that what I saw on the inside was true seeing. And the trouble with the word imagination for me in English Western culture, imagination means something you've made up in your head. Like, don't think of the pink elephant. Don't picture the pink elephant with the tail and the bow in its tail. And of course I've seen a pink elephant with a bow in its tail because it's been described to me. But that's I'm not seeing something. It's just being created on the canvas of my imagination. But this is the prophetic process of seeing. I saw and I beheld, I went in. And I realized that it gets amplified by what I would call states. So the scriptures use the words like trance. So it uses the word trance twice in the book of Acts. Peter falls into a trance. Paul falls into a trance in the book of Acts. And that's clearly an altered state. And when he has his experience that he describes, that he claims someone else's, it happened to someone else, but if you understand how they talked in that time with that way of talking, he's talking about himself. He has this, I went to the third heaven. And he couldn't work out whether it was in the body or out of the body. So it's some kind of altered mind state where it's like what you were seeing inside, which doesn't necessarily feel inside, it can feel around you, gets amplified, and what you're physically aware of gets diminished. That's visionary. That's having a vision. That's, you could be sitting there having reading the Bible and meditating on a verse, and then it feels like Jesus walks in the room. And he's not physically walked in the room, but he's walked in the room. And maybe you even get a physical reaction, like a tingling, and you get imaginary pictures coming to you of him walking in the room. And whether you go into that or not is what determines how much of that experience you have and how much it grows. So I think all of this is a framework that the New Testament, they would have understood this easily because they understood visions and prophetic experiences much better than our culture does, unless you've grown up in an occult background or a very mystical background. So we have to learn it. And I think, well, my experience is I've had to learn it because I have so much mental resistance to it. Here's another scripture. It says, Jesus says in Matthew 5-7, which is a summary of his teachings, he says that if your eye is good, your whole body is good. If your eye is evil, then woe to you. And it's in the context of money a generosity, and it's a Hebraism where if your eyes are clear, then it means you're generous. But why pick the image of your eyes? Because there's something about eyes that it represents your state and what you're looking at and what you're aware of. You know, you can see things but not see them, can't you? 10 people can watch a scene and 9 people don't see something, and one person says, no, I saw this, because all the others blanked it out. They weren't looking for it. What are you looking for? I find it interesting that neurologists now acknowledge that your eyes are, okay, they do enable you to see things, but there's an even more deep purpose of your eyes, which is to set the state of your being. So they know that if you walk and look up and it's a bright day, that the walking process where you have stuff going past you, it awakens you, it makes you more alert. It changes your state. Probably some of the most effective therapeutic treatment that there is for post-traumatic stress disorder, they discovered since the Afghanistan war, is an eye movement technique where you get people back into the experience of the trauma to some extent, and you get them to move their eyes, and they think, because they're learning, they know this stuff works, there's plenty of papers done on it now, and they speculate it's because it's kind of simulating walking and moving and stuff moving past your eyes. So it changes your state. You readjust your relationship with that memory when that happens. And I'm not unpacking that now, and I'm not an expert on it, but I've seen the power of it. There's something about seeing, which we're all made to see internally, and that I don't mean that in your belly button. I mean that you see. It can be panoramic, it can be outside of you, you can feel like stuff is happening outside, but that is true seeing. And we have to develop that. We have to hunger for that. And the last just thought kickstarter that I've found is that I had to program myself with the things to see. So how do you see an angel if you don't know what an angel looks like? Because an angel could walk right by you, and if you don't know what an angel looks like, you miss it. Because you see what you're looking for. There's so much information going on. It's what you are. If you search for something, that's what you find. And I programmed myself with certain scriptures, because I figured that if this is David experiencing in Psalm 91 angelic protection, and he goes to this secret place, he's not writing theoretically, he's writing as one who's experienced it. And he's even giving his experience of doing that into that psalm as he's writing and capturing it. So in a sense, I can reverse engineer that psalm to take the information he's given me and go backwards into the encounter with what he's seeing. Now, the more I do that, and one that I spent ages meditating on. I mean, I had it on a card, and eventually I didn't need it on a card because it was just ingrained in me, and I'd go to the toilet and sit on the toilet and meditate on it, and I'd go and have a drink, and I'd constantly come back to John encountering Jesus in the book of Revelation, chapter 1. And I thought about what Jesus must have looked like to him. And again, I'm on the assumption this is a real experience he's had. He's not playing theological games. And I'm going, I want to reverse engineer that. I want to experience what he experienced, or something like it. To program my being to see reality, because that reality is much more real than the computer sitting in front of me now. Because everything visible came out of the invisible, according to Hebrews. God created everything visible from the invisible. So there's some thoughts. Of course, there's a 1,000 practical questions about how you do that, which would be great to start talking about. But those are 3 things that I think have to shift in that process of learning within us to see stuff. So even now, I can just, because I've grown in my experience, I can switch to internal seeing, if you like. I can become aware, that is, put my focus on what is around me unseen. I don't mean what is standing right next to me physically, but I am talking about what is standing right next to me physically. I don't know how to explain it. But I'm going, and now I haven't got the chance to go into an altered state of total focus and possibly fall into the wormhole of that reality, but I can glimpse at it, because I'm trying to talk to you guys as well. But I can glimpse at it and see what is happening. Now, I might not be able to pull any detail out of that at all. I may not be able to draw a picture of what I've seen, but the mere act of becoming aware that I must be seeing things, because I'm made to see. They're around me. I'm seeing them right now. Right now, as we sit here, you're seeing things. It's just you're not focused on them. You're not, and you're not allowing yourself to go into an altered state to see them intensely. But I am starting to go, they're here. It's here. There's another realm. And cultivating that, sitting on the edge of your seat, ready to see something, so you carry that state with you, slowly enables you to see more throughout the day. When you're standing at the bus stop, when you're talking to someone at the drinks corner at work, you catch glimpses of things. You don't have time to go deep into them, but there was something there. I don't know what it was, but felt something move when that person switched their conversation to a different tone. I'm becoming aware to what I'm seeing.